podcast with me today. So excited to talk to you about your book, Reignite Your Relationships by 7X, so you can get back to making love and enjoying your spouse. Thanks again, Marshaun, for jumping on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Aaron.
Awesome. Well, before we talk about your book, Marshaun, would you mind letting the listeners in a little bit on your life? Talk a little bit about yourself, maybe in your work, what you're up to right now.
Okay, so again, my name is MarshaunO. I am a wife. I'm a mother. I am the author of Reignite Your Relationship by 7X, so you can get back to making love and enjoying your spouse. I am also a life and relationship strategist, so I help married women and women that are in long-term relationships just really define who they are while they're in that relationship, deciding if they need to stay, if they need to go, how they can show up in their relationship and really love themselves, really love the relationship, as well as love their spouse.
Awesome. Sounds like you're doing some great work, Marshaun.
Yes.
Well, let's jump into your book, Reignite Your Relationship by 7X. Would you mind just giving us and the listeners that 30,000-foot view and that overview, and what really inspired you to write the book?
Yeah, so what really inspired me to write the book is now, this is actually my second marriage that I'm in. And so my first marriage, it wasn't bad, but I didn't have the tools, the strategies, the information to stay happy, to stay really even healthy in the relationship and make the relationship healthy within itself. And so I decided to write this book because it gives you the tools and the strategies to have a happy relationship, to really thrive within your relationship, if you decide to actually use the skills, use the strategies that are actually in the book. Use them, because it's different having the material and having the knowledge if you don't use it. If you don't use it, it doesn't even matter if you have the knowledge.
Right. Awesome. Well, would you mind jumping into some of these strategies for us, for those of us maybe that need that help right now or that could use some advice? What would you tell that person right now?
You know what, we because we live in such a serious society, we have to learn how to laugh, and specifically with our spouses, because a lot of times the people on the outside get the best version of you versus when you go home after you've already been out in the world and you've given your all, put your all into your work. And then when you come back home, your family and specifically your spouse, we don't get the best of you when you return back home. So learning how to how to laugh and just to have fun within your relationship is one of the main things. It's also one of the main things that you need in your relationship to make it for the long haul. So some of the elderly couples that I talk to, they definitely always say that dating, so I'll say that as a second one, but dating and laughter is the two main things that help them get through the long haul of the marriage. And then just discussing relationship expectations as well. A lot of us think that we're just supposed to know, or our spouse is supposed to just know what to do. And that's just not true. We literally have to communicate that by opening up our mouths and telling our spouse what we need, what we want, what we desire, and what make us happy within that relationship as well. Right?
Yeah. So, awesome. Yeah. Great tips. I love those. I've been married for 13 years now, so I can agree with or feel the love with some of those.
For sure.
What about, I guess, if there was one main thing you'd want the listener or reader to take away from your book, what would you say that would be?
The main thing I would want them to take away from the book is just to literally, I've actually already said it, which is to apply the information that they're reading in the book, because literally it's probably, with the exception of 2 of 3 of the things, it's probably things that you've already heard, but we really need to apply the things, because we think that we make things and we make our relationships harder than they need to be. And when you have the fear, you still need to push past the fear and communicate whatever it is that you want to talk about with your spouse even when you're scared, even when you think that the topic is silly, even when you feel like they might even judge you, make you feel bad, you still need to allow them into your world so you two can connect, so they can understand who you are, why you react the way you react, why you even act the way you act. Let me know some of your backstory, and you also let your spouse know your backstory, your upbringing, all of the things that scare you, right? Let them truly into your world. So applying what you read is the best information, the best strategy that you could use.
Awesome. Do you think just letting them in on your world, does that help them to understand you better maybe? And then you might understand why they react a certain way or behave a certain way and have more compassion? Is that part of it?
For sure. Definitely compassion and just being more sympathetic and understanding to you. And say, for instance, if I was the person that always just lashed out and yelled, well, if we had a conversation and I told you a story about how I didn't feel heard as a child and now I need to express myself in the way that I feel I need to express myself, whether right or whether wrong, this is how I express myself in this yelling manner because I didn't feel heard as a child. And now I want you to hear me.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. Well, thank you for sharing those practical tips. And obviously, yeah, we all got to put the work in, but I love those three points you pointed out there. What about your influences, Marshaun? Anything stand out, or anybody stand out that's really influenced you to now be the woman you are and writing a book, which is a huge accomplishment. So congrats again on that. Who's
Thank
influenced
you.
you the most?
You know, I would have to say my mother and my youngest brother, and both of them are just very determined people. Both have, like most of us, have gone through adversity, but they decided to not let the adversity hold them down. So specifically for my mother, she had 7 children, and my biological father walked away, and she was a stay-at-home mom, and so then she had to figure out how to feed all of these mouths, right, as well as herself, keep the roof over our head, etc. Right. So that's her. She was definitely an influence in my life, just to say, keep going no matter what. You might get knocked down, but you can figure out how to persevere and continue to move forward. And then my brother, he had his first business collapsed and found out people were stealing from him. And he just had to figure out a way to come back, like the comeback kid. But also the business now is doing so much better than it was the first time around. It's thriving. Of course, he's prosperous now. It's doing so much better. So those would be the 2 influential people within my life for sure.
Great. Thank you for sharing those influences. What about a failure in your life, Marshaun? A lot of times we learn the most from those. Any particular failure you'd like to share with the listeners today, that something maybe you learned from it?
For sure. We all have one, but the one that stood out to me that also helped me create the book is my failed marriage. For sure, because I'm like everybody else. I never wanted to be within a failed marriage. I wanted to get married one time and make this thing work, but I didn't have the information. I was young. But mainly it was just that I just didn't have the information. I actually don't think that it was just my age per se, because I've always been pretty mature. It was just I didn't really know what I was doing and what I was really getting into, and how much work it takes to put into creating a wonderful relationship. So my failed marriage was definitely that, and it's taught me so much. It's taught me so much. And now I share the information with my clients and those who need help, specifically the married women and women that have been in long-term relationships, for sure.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that story. What about a favorite quote, Marshaun? Anything stand out, something maybe you live by, you'd like to share with the listeners today?
Yes, I talked about it a little bit, but specifically the quote is "Feel the fear and do it anyway." Mel Robbins. I love it because it's really appropriate in all areas of our life. I like to talk about relationships because that's my focus, but in every area of your life, there's going to be some type of fear that shows up, rears its ugly head, and you have to deal with it, because if you don't, then you'll always be stuck in that situation. And so until you push past the fear and actually do that thing that you're fearful of doing, you will always be stuck in that situation. So you just need to just do it. Fear and all, have the conversation. Fearful and all. If you're fearful of speaking on stages, you have to speak on stages. Like whatever it is that you're fearful of, you have to do that thing.
Love it. Awesome. What about you're writing your book? I think that was a good segue into the fear and doubt sometimes that sneaks in to us as authors and saying, hey, can we do this? Are we good enough?
Yeah.
Did you experience that while writing your book? And if so, what did you do to help yourself overcome it?
I totally experienced it writing my book. And what did I do to overcome it? I literally just kept going. I just said, you know what? I have something to say and I need to share this. I need to birth my book. I need to birth my story and help other people. And so the more that I thought about the lives that I would be helping, I just decided to push forward and put it out there. Push forward and put it out there.
That's great. Great tips. Yeah, just seeing who you're helping. It obviously that's helped you to not overthink the fear that you had to get your message out there. I love it.
Sure.
What about anything you wish you would have known before you started writing your book? Some tips and tricks, perhaps, for those who might be interested in writing a book. Something maybe you learned along the way.
Yes, I learned that the storyline as well as the physical writing of the book have to be just as well as the marketing of your book, especially when it comes to, wanting to get your message out there. You have to put it in front of people in order for other people to read it and then also be able to apply what you wrote. So the marketing portion is just as important as the actual writing and your book just being good.
Yep.
It's just
totally agree. Any other resources that helped you along the way, Marshaun? People or tools, anything like that?
Well, I love YouTube. So there's a plethora of people on YouTube. I don't have any one person on YouTube, but then there's also, I looked for just information and examples via Amazon, just going on there and kind of looking for the best titles and the best selling books within my genre. And then looking at the titles and looking to see how simple and clean the actual cover is and versus it being cluttered. And then I did take a course on Udemy as well to just get some more tips.
Awesome. All right. Well, what about writer's block, Marshaun? Did you experience that at all while writing your book? And if so, what did you do to help overcome that?
And no, I don't think I experienced writer's block because I just had so much to say that I just needed to get it out. So I didn't experience writer's block, at least this book. Let me say that.
Yeah. Well, that's great. You're obviously passionate about it. So it probably helped in that way as well, right?
Oh, for sure. It was, I don't want to say easy because it did become tough, but it wasn't writer's block. It was more of the sentence structure or how should I actually explain this more than writer's block.
Got it. Okay. Well, what would you say was the most difficult part of writing a book for you then?
For me, let's see. It was the order of how I wanted to put the chapters within the book. The order was the toughest part for me, and then deciding what the cover was going to look like, the final product. So those were the toughest things for me.
Okay. All right. Well, what about the best part now about writing your book for you, Marshaun? What would you say that's been like?
The best part for me is hearing how much it's inspiring other people to do the work to create the relationship that they want, to create the marriage that they want. I actually had a couple come to me and say that they're not a couple, but they're the mom and dad of a child, right? So they decided that they weren't getting along really well, and she decided to read my book, and then she brought it to him and say, hey, can you read this book, or can we read this together just for us being able to raise our child better. Not that we're going to get back together in a relationship, but we need to be able to parent a lot better. And so that was really mind blowing to me. And they read it together and they did the discussion together, and they didn't get back together as far as a relationship wise go, but they're learning how to parent better, how to communicate better and understand one another better. So I thought that was really, really awesome. And then just to hear other people say how often they come back to my book, and just to refresh and then refresh and reapply the information as well.
That's amazing. Well, Marshaun, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. So if you'd like to share anything else, or if you would ask yourself something, if you were in my shoes, something I missed, what would that be?
Let's see, what would that be? What are my beliefs on why most relationships fail? Yeah.
Good one.
And so I'll answer the question. Yeah. Thanks for asking. My beliefs really are that we all let our ego and pride get in the way. And if more people said the two simple words of "I'm sorry," we would have less divorces and more relationships thriving and more people being happy and keeping families together. Saying "I'm sorry" can be one of the toughest things, for those words are just very powerful, but some people like to hold on. They want to be right, or they have to be right. They have to have the last word. And they're not thinking about the family structure, and how we need to build the family and keep the family together. So if you say "I'm sorry," mean it, then we really could decrease the divorce rate.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Marshaun, for sharing all of your expertise for those of us who especially are in relationships of some kind. And these are just powerful tips. I've already gotten something out of it for my own marriage, so I appreciate it.
Perfect.
Why don't you just finish out with letting the listeners in on where they can connect with you online and what you're up to next? Okay, so the top 3 social media sites that I'm on is Facebook, which is my name. I'm sure you'll have it spelled out somewhere. So MarshaunO is on Facebook. On Instagram and on YouTube, I am MarshaunO. So my first name with my last initial, MarshaunO for Instagram and YouTube. Awesome. Yes, and what I'm up to next is I'm getting ready to write my next book as well. So that's what I'm up to, getting ready to write my next book. Congrats. And of course, helping women out there as well to create the relationships that they want. Oh, that's great. Well, make sure you connect with me again, or I'll try to reach out to you when your book gets out there. I'd love to talk to you again about it. And Thanks again, Marshaun, for all that you're doing to help all of us in relationships make them better and keep them lasting. It makes a difference. Thank you so much.